Hi, welcome back to the series of videos on Ind AS, that is Ind AS with Accountsman, and this session 3 on Ind AS 12, that is continuation of our income taxes. As I told you in the previous lecture, we were done with what, why and how. We were supposed to discuss couple of special topics that was there in our Ind AS 12. So let us take up those special topics. So we discussed when to create deferred tax and what is deferred tax asset, what is deferred tax liability, what would lead to creation of deferred tax asset, what would lead to creation of deferred tax liability, everything. But an important point that we need to know is creation of deferred tax asset will definitely question prudence. Yeah, or we can say conservatism, because we can account for expected expenses and losses, or expected expense, that is like an obligated payment to be made in the future, that is a liability. If you are going to get income in the future, if you are going to expect a deduction in the future, your temporary deduction that you are going to get into the future is basically our deferred tax asset. We have termed it as expected future, other than deductible temporary difference is our deferred tax asset. So in the future we're going to get some deduction, so that was the reason why we created deferred tax asset. So such deferred tax asset is always a question of prudence and conservatism. So will we be allowed to create deferred tax asset after considering the fact of prudence or conservatism is the question. So the answer is pretty simple. We can create deferred tax asset only on a condition that there is expected, or we can use the other word, foreseeable future sufficient profits or sufficient taxable profits. So in the future there should be sufficient profits which are taxable. Only then you can adjust this deferred tax asset that you created right now. And this, in this consideration, we would have to see tax provisions that are applicable and our tax planning also. See, if our tax planning is such a way that we will not get any taxable profit in the future years. So if that is the case, then there is no point in carrying forward your deferred tax asset, meaning in the future years you will never be able to adjust it behind. Though it is a temporary difference, you will never be able to adjust it. You get that? So in the future there should be profits which will be wherein it will be able to get adjusted. The difference is supposed to get reversed. Only if there is such viability, then we are going to create deferred tax asset. If there is no such possibility, we are not going to create deferred tax asset. So that is with respect to deferred tax asset. So very important point, you need to note that deferred tax asset will be created only when there is expected future sufficient taxable profits and there is the tax provisions and tax planning will allow you to reverse such particular difference. Yeah, this is the point. Now we'll start discussing the special points. Yeah, the first special point that I want to discuss with you is with respect to combinations. When I say combination, I am not discussing that permutation combination from your statistics. I am discussing about business combination. I can write the full word. Yeah, business combinations. So that is with regard to our acquisition, holding, subsidiary, associate, joint venture and everything. So the first point that I want to discuss with respect to this is acquisition. Yeah. So whenever you acquire a specific business, would there be some certain items which are getting created which would lead to this income taxes Ind AS 12 treatment? So that is our point of discussion. So this would definitely arise. If you can remember or recall some part of your amalgamation chapter, whenever you basically go for a merger or a purchase or an acquisition, you buy another entity, you buy another going concern. When you buy that particular organization, you take over their assets, you take over their liabilities. So basically what you take over is net assets, like assets minus liabilities. So that net assets minus the liabilities, whatever you take over, for that amount you need to compensate by paying purchase consideration. So I hope this is something that we already know. So this net assets taken over and purchase consideration might not be same. There would definitely be difference. Net assets taken over might be 100, but the purchase consideration what we give might be 120. Or net assets taken over might be 100, but the purchase consideration what we pay might be 80. I am talking about a case where we pay more than our specific particular amount of net assets taken over. When we do that, such excess of PC over NATO, I'll write here excess of purchase consideration over net assets taken over is what we call as goodwill. You get this? So how exactly would we treat this goodwill? Would this goodwill lead to any difference is the current point of discussion. The answer is yes. Goodwill will actually lead to creation of certain differences. We'll see how. Yeah. The first point is we need to see according to accounts and according to tax, the kind of treatment is very different. In accounts, we basically go by Ind AS. Ouch. Yeah. In accounts, we basically go by Ind AS. Our Ind AS which deals with intangible assets. According to accounts, that is specifically what deals with our Ind AS, goodwill should be valued at fair value. Ind AS basically pushes everything to be recorded at fair value. Whereas tax says that the goodwill as an asset should be recorded at the carrying amount in the books of the previous party. So here it says carrying amount, or I can tell book value. I'll tell book value. Book value to the previous party will become the carrying amount for the particular case of taxes. That is, book value will become our tax base, fair value will become our carrying amount. So as they are very distinct, we are pretty sure that these both will not be same. When these both are not same, what is happening? There is difference in values. When there is difference in values of carrying amount and tax base, we should definitely be creating what? Should definitely be creating deferred tax. You get that? So goodwill is an asset. You get this? On this asset, whenever there is increase, we would have to be creating deferred tax liability. Now my question is, on this initial recognition of goodwill, on this initial recognition of goodwill, whatever we are doing, whenever there is difference between carrying amount and tax base, yeah, carrying amount and tax base difference, carrying amount and tax base, when they are different, yeah, should we be creating deferred tax? Should we be creating deferred tax? The answer is no. We should not create deferred tax. You might be wondering why? Why can't we create deferred tax? It is a difference and it is a temporary difference. The answer is pretty simple. Whenever the goodwill is there, it is the goodwill, it is the asset of the old person or the old company, the company which is being taken over. So you take over that goodwill. Now that goodwill has increased. You get that the fair value has become more. So when the goodwill has increased, you create deferred tax liability. This deferred tax liability is because of that increase in the goodwill. So this deferred tax liability is the liability in the books of the old company. So there is increase in the asset, that is goodwill. So there is increase in liability, deferred tax. So this deferred tax liability also belongs to the old company. I cannot write this to my profit and loss account, but I would have to deduct this DTL from my goodwill because they are opposite to each other. So when I do that, what will happen? My goodwill decreases a little. When the goodwill decreases, the deferred tax liability should decrease. So I will decrease my deferred tax liability. Such decreased deferred tax liability will again not go to P&L. It should again be decreasing my goodwill. So again my goodwill gets decreased. The decreased goodwill will lead to decreased deferred tax liability. The decreased deferred tax liability will decrease my goodwill. So this is a loop. It goes on happening. It will go on till the time my goodwill becomes 0, making my DTL 0. It will not become 0. My goodwill and DTL will become same value. And when I adjust my DTL with goodwill, they both become 0. So the ultimate conclusion under IFRS is that whenever there is initial recognition of goodwill arising on acquisition in the form of business combination, deferred tax should not be recognized. And Ind AS has incorporated the same concept, meaning whenever there is goodwill arising on acquisition in the form of business combination, deferred tax will not be created. So if I have to summarize it to you, deferred tax not to be created whenever there is initial recognition. First time when we acquire that value, on that we are not supposed to create any deferred tax. Whereas what about the subsequent treatment? Yeah, with respect to subsequent adjustment, what do you mean by subsequent adjustment? When I refer to subsequent adjustment, we basically mean amortization. Yeah, we depreciate tangible assets, we amortize intangible assets. So whenever we amortize, now depreciation under Income Tax Act, depreciation under Companies Act is different. Depreciation the way we do under Ind AS, depreciation the way we do according to section 32 of Income Tax Act are different. So that would lead to creation of timing difference. In fact, when I decreased our temporary differences concept, I had given the example of section 32 there. I had mentioned there in the examples. I can show it to you here. See, when we discussed it here, I had given section 32 as an example. You get the depreciation. Similarly, amortization also will come. But way more important topic here with respect to this is, what do we do under Ind AS? I'll write it here in a new page. Whenever we do Ind AS with respect to goodwill, we'll discuss it when we discuss a separate standard 38 with regard to intangible assets. But if I have to give a simple recognition, goodwill, we need to check whether there is definite life or indefinite life. We need to check this with respect to the intangible asset. Whenever there is definite life, we have two models. One is the cost model, second one is the revaluation model. Cost model means we recognize that goodwill at cost and we go on amortizing certain part of it every year, meaning we go on transferring certain part of that intangible asset to our P&L, statement of profit or loss, every year. That is our cost model. Under revaluation model, what we do is we record our goodwill at a certain amount. At the end of 1 year, we revalue that value. So assume that goodwill is initially recognized at 100. At the end of year 1, we revalue it. If the revalued figure is 80, the difference between original cost of 100 and revalued figure of 80, 20 rupees will go to statement of profit or loss. In the next year, the opening balance is 80. I will revalue at the end of year 2 for 70. So 80 and 70, the difference of 10 will go to my statement of profit or loss. So there is no fixed basis like the cost model. There is no amortization on a fixed basis. We go by revaluation model. However, whenever the intangible asset has indefinite life, we need to check for amortization. Check for impairment. I use the wrong word. Check for impairment. Again, it's a separate standard. We'll discuss it separately. Whenever we talk about impairment, what we do is we basically compare the carrying amount of that specific asset and the recoverable amount. Recoverable amount is found as fair value of the asset or value in use, whichever is high. Fair value of the asset, that is value in use, or the recoverable amount, the net realizable value, whichever is high will become our recoverable amount, that we compare with the carrying amount. Then if our carrying amount is greater than the recoverable amount, then there is impairment loss, and this impairment loss will be reduced from the cost of the asset. So if an asset has indefinite life, we basically check for impairment every year. So this is how we treat goodwill under Ind AS. But under tax, what do we do? Under tax, we straight away go for amortization. You get that? So we've read it, how to treat. So under tax and under accounts, I'll write accounts first and then write tax. We'll maintain some order. Under accounts, under tax, it will be very different. Why? Under accounts, what do? We can either do amortization, or we'll do revaluation, or we'll do impairment. We have three distinct ways of handling this particular case with respect to goodwill under account or books of accounts, or to say accounting, Ind AS. Whereas under tax, there is only one thing, amortization. Whenever we follow Income Tax Act of 1961, only one thing that we do with respect to our goodwill is what? Amortize it. You get that? I wanted to use black. You get that? So whenever there is difference, obviously there would be difference. So there would be mismatch, and this mismatch is temporary, because at the end of the what will happen, this year it will be little more, next year it will become little less, it will get compensated. So these are temporary differences. So should we be creating deferred tax is the question. So for which the answer is deferred tax should definitely be created. With respect to subsequent adjustment, deferred tax should be definitely created. And whenever we create this deferred tax, how do we go about? Should we compare the amortization amount under accounts, amortization amount under tax, and then check which is more, which is less? No, that concept is gone. That is what we were doing under accounting standard 22, taxes on income. Whereas when we are in the Ind AS era, we will not be doing that. What would we be doing? We would basically be comparing the difference between the carrying amount and the tax base. So what would we do? Under accounts, we have something called as what? Carrying amount. Under tax, we have something called as what? Tax base. So what is tax base? That is the expected enduring economic benefit from that specific asset. So the cost of the asset minus the amount that is already amortized. Under accounts, the cost of that intangible asset minus whatever is amortized or the revalued figure or after impairment value. So we compare those two values. On the difference, we basically create deferred tax. Sir, how do we create? If assume the carrying amount is 100, if my carrying amount is 100, tax base is 80, so we'll take about 100. So the asset value is increased, so I'll create deferred tax liability. Or if it is a case where my carrying amount has become 60, You get that? And my tax base is 80. So under accounts, the asset has become less. So I create deferred tax asset. So we do the opposite. We do the opposite of whatever is there in accounts. We do the opposite of whatever is there in accounts. I hope you got this point. So this is how we deal with respect to acquisition. Are we done with the entire thing? No, we are not done yet. We need to discuss how do we treat with regard to subsidiary, joint venture and associate. Yeah, this is completely acquisition. You acquired the business and you include it in your business. When you only acquire the shares in that particular business, or you only acquire the interest in that company and it's still continuing as a going concern, then what are the reasons or what are the places where this will lead, or this kind of a situation regarding changes in the taxes will arise? Yeah, shall we discuss this? That is my second point. So second point is, what to say, investment in subsidiary, associate and joint venture. Yeah, I can technically take them as separate topics. Yeah, in fact we should be taking them as separate topics, because the kind of accounting that is done in combinations for subsidiary is basically we go by line to line method. Line to line, their asset, my asset, I'll go on adding I'll add line to line items. Whereas when you go to asset and associate and joint venture, we will be following equity method. Under subsidiary we do line to line consolidation. You get that? Whereas when you go for associate and joint venture, for both of them together, what do? We go by equity method. Yeah, but I'll tell you, you should not see this as two different cases. With regard to income taxes, we can see it as single case, because even when we do line to line adjustment, it will ultimately result like equity, because when we take that reserves and then adjust it, take our portion after removing non-controlling interest, it will technically come down to be like equity method only. We restate that value of cost of investments under combinations if you read consolidation. If not, just try and understand that there is not much of a difference. Technically it will become, at the end it will become same only for the purpose of our income taxes. So shall I start discussing now? Whenever we need to create deferred tax, it will be basically because we are going by balance sheet approach in our income taxes, and we have accounts, we have tax. Under accounts we have, what do we have? We have carrying amount. Under tax we have tax base, and only when these two are different, then the value under the carrying amount and the tax base values are different, only then it will lead to creation of deferred tax. We know this point. Now when will there be difference? I'll tell you. Now we need to check if there will be difference at first place. Under accounts, what we do is we record the cost of investments, and whenever there is any profit that is earned by our subsidiary, associate or joint venture, we add that profit. Yeah, profit that is earned by the subsidiary, associate or joint venture during that, we add it. Whereas under tax, what we do is we record it at cost of investments. That's it. Income Tax Act doesn't let you change the cost of investments by adding the profits that is earned by your subsidiary. It will never let you do that. So what will happen? There is definitely mismatch. Now you will say, sir, there will be no deferred tax here. My question is why? The answer is pretty simple. There is a permanent difference. No, it is not a temporary difference. See, deferred tax will be created only when there is difference between carrying amount and tax base, and such difference is temporary in nature. If the difference become permanent in nature, there is no case of deferred tax only. Now I am trying to prove it to you that this difference is temporary in nature. How? This difference is temporary is for sure. How is it temporary is something that I am trying to answer now. This difference is temporary because after I add profit to the cost of investments, if my subsidiary, associate or joint venture declares dividend, I will subtract the dividend portion here, because whenever dividend is received, it will lead to decrease in the profit. So the profit which is previously added will be deducted. So at the end what will happen? Here also it will become cost only. So if you see at this stage, both are same. So what I am trying to tell here is the entire difference that is there here is temporary difference. You get that? There is temporary difference. So my conclusion is, whenever there is mismatch in carrying amount and tax base, we have to create deferred tax. So should we be creating deferred tax? The answer is yes. But you need to check for certain things. So the conclusion is like this. with respect to investment in subsidiary, associate and joint venture, the carrying amount and tax base will be different because under accounts or under Ind AS, to be precise, under Ind AS, what do? To the cost of the investments, we add the profit, subtract the dividend. If we add profit and subtract dividend, then the cost of the investments will be same as the tax base. The carrying amount will become equal to tax base. There will be no difference. Whereas when profit is added but dividend is not yet subtracted, meaning the profit is accumulated and the subsidiary, associate or joint venture has not yet declared dividend, then what would happen? There will be difference between carrying amount and tax base. Then we would have to basically what? Do our deferred tax. You get this? So when would we be doing this? We will be doing this in two circumstances. There are two conditions that is supposed to be satisfied. I'll write here. Two conditions. Sorry, deferred tax to be created on two conditions. On two conditions. I'll tell you what are these two conditions. Yeah. Condition number one. Condition number one. We need to have control. We need to have control. We means who? Holding company, or the company which has subsidiary or company which has invested in associate or joint venture. We are not subsidiary, we are not associate, we are not joint venture. We are the person who are having a subsidiary, associate or joint venture. We should have the control. What control? We should have the control to declare dividend. You get this? Now this control, I'll tell you each about with regard to each of this. Okay. Now we'll see with respect to subsidiary, we'll see with respect to associate, we'll see with respect to joint venture. Now if I am the holding company, I own more than 50% shares in my subsidiary, so I can nominate people to the board. I can definitely declare dividend if I want to. So I'll have a control on my subsidiary. But with respect to my associate, boss, I have hardly 20%. Someone else might be the holding company of my associate. So associate me, I don't have control. I cannot declare dividend. Same is the case with respect to joint venture. So with respect to associate and joint venture, the holding does not have the control. Holding company has the control only with respect to subsidiary company. So that is the first condition. So my second condition is there is dividend to be declared in foreseeable future. So there should be probable dividend in the foreseeable future. You should see that in the next 6 months or in the next 1 year, in the next 2-3 years, you should be basically declaring dividend. Sir, what is this foreseeable? Can I call 10 years as my foreseeable future? Or should I call next 1 month as my foreseeable future? This is completely left over professional judgment. Ind AS doesn't give this time period for our foreseeable future. It is definitely left to our professional judgment. If we see that the company can basically go for dividend in the foreseeable future, then we can go for deferred tax. If they see there is no possibility of my subsidiary, associate or joint venture going for dividend in the next 10 years, then it will never get reversed. No, it will not get reversed in the next 10 years. So this difference between carrying amount and tax base, whatever is there, will become permanent in nature. Then I should not be recognizing my deferred tax at all in that particular case. So this you would have to see it in the question. Yeah, only if mentioned in, okay, to be mentioned in the question. I'll write not to be assumed. Not to be assumed. Yeah, to be mentioned in question. Yeah, they should mention in the question that there is going to be dividend declaration in the foreseeable future. Only when both of these conditions are ticked, then we can recognize deferred tax. If not, no. You get this? So I'll summarize this entire thing to you in the next page. Simple. We have three kinds of organizations: subsidiary, associate, joint venture. You get this? So, and we have two conditions. Condition number one, condition number two. Condition number one, control. Condition number two, dividend in foreseeable future. With respect to our subsidiary, we definitely have control. With respect to dividend, what do we do? Okay, see the question. See the question. If in the question they give that there is a foreseeable future, the dividend is going to be declared, then what do we do? Then we go for deferred tax. If not, no. With respect to associate, what will happen? Control is not there in our hands, boss. And this we have to see the question. With respect to all the cases, okay, we would have to see the question. Never assume this point, okay. We have to see the question. If they give it in the question, we'll do it. If not, no. So even in the question, if they say that the dividend will be given in the foreseeable future, we don't have the control. These conditions are inclusive. It is and, boss, 1 and 2. It is not 1 or 2. So there will be no deferred tax in this particular case. Deferred tax will not be created. Whereas in the case of subsidiary, what do? We have the control. So if in the question, if they mention saying that dividend will be issued in the foreseeable future, then we'll create deferred tax. If not, no. So this is the entire summary of how to deal with investment in subsidiary, associate or joint venture. Very important topic. Lot of people find it very difficult to do this, and there are few questions on this in our ICAI material. Please do solve those questions, and this knowledge is very much sufficient, and if you can revise this the day before the exam, you need not solve the question. You can go into the examination and then definitely be able to solve this particular question in the examination when it comes. You get this? So very important topic. I've tried to break this difficult topic into very simple terms so that you can understand in a very simple language. You get this? So this goodwill part, whatever we discussed with regard to acquisition, initial recognition, no DT, subsequent recognition, definitely deferred tax will come, and with respect to our investment in subsidiary, associate, joint venture, very important. You get this? So these are there in our Ind AS. Now let us go to some part with regard to which our Ind AS is quiet or Ind AS is silent. So that is my topic of minimum alternate tax. Yeah, is something that we call as MAT. Yeah, this is given under section 115 JB of Income Tax Act 1961. Yeah, see, lot of organizations basically have lot of benefits, a lot of exemptions or a lot of deductions, because of which they might not be liable to tax, but they are making profits. So this is not fair, and government cannot run without collection of taxes. So they brought in these provisions where there is an alternate tax act within an act only. There is a separate set of provisions with which you collect tax only. So whatever I am discussing right now is completely with regard to Income Tax Act and nothing to do with accounts. I will bring in accounts little later. So what we do is, normal income tax provisions are one side, section 115 JB is one side. You get this? Here we have taxable profit. I will use a different color to make you understand this in little easy terms. Yeah, we'll have taxable profits. On this we find tax. What is this? This is our normal tax. Yeah, and under our section 115 JB we find something called as book profits. Yeah, in computation of book profits, what expenses are allowed, what expenses are not allowed is specifically given in our explanation 1 to section 115 JB. If explanation 1 to section 115 JB allows something as expense, only then we'll deduct it as expense. If not, no. Our concept of section 43B, 40A, 40A2, exempted income, agricultural income, all that will not come into picture only. So everything will be taken into same consideration only. You get that? So book profits. On this we find something called as minimum alternate tax. And what we do under taxation is, we need to pay normal tax, which is at normal rates. For MAT there is a separate rate altogether. You get that? MAT rates are some completely different. It is revised under every financial budget, every finance act or every budget. So what we need to pay is normal tax or minimum alternate tax, whichever is higher. So what would happen is, whenever our normal tax is greater than minimum alternate tax, then what do we pay? We pay normal tax. That is all fine. Happy case. Normal tax is paid. It becomes interesting when normal tax is lesser than minimum alternate tax. Then what do we pay? Minimum alternate tax is paid. When we pay minimum alternate tax, very important consideration is MAT minus normal tax. That is excess whatever is paid over and above normal tax is called as MAT credit. This MAT credit is allowed for us to be carried down for 15 years, and we can adjust it against the differential thing. Meaning in the next year, if normal tax is greater than minimum alternate tax, then the differential amount can be adjusted with our MAT credit that is already available. This can be carried forward for 15 years. From the first year, if you create this year, for the next 15 subsequent financial years, you can carry forward this. Now, what kind of an impact does this has on our income taxes or on our deferred tax is the point that we're going to discuss here. Yeah, I hope you understood till here. Now I'm going to discuss what kind of an impact will minimum alternate tax has on our deferred tax. Yeah, this MAT will become asset in our books. You get that? Whenever it becomes asset, it can be current, it can be non-current. That basically depends. How to determine current or non-current, I've taught you previously. So whenever this becomes asset, it will be carried forward for that specific period, whatever I did tell you, and it can be adjusted in the future. Basically, when I pay my current tax, it will be like this. Whatever the tax I pay will become my expense. I'll write tax expense account debit, and I'll be writing to bank for the payment. But this is our normal tax. You get that? But this is my minimum alternate tax. Minimum alternate tax is greater than normal tax. Then MAT credit will come here. I'll write MAT credit account. You get that? So this portion, whatever I am writing here, is basically my asset. You get that? So that is the accounting with respect to this MAT. And with regard to MAT, Ind AS doesn't tell anything. So we basically following whatever the accounting standard 22 whatever used to tell. So we're going to follow the same thing. So we're done with MAT part. I have two more small topics to discuss. That is one with regard to our tax holiday. Second one with respect to our long-term capital gain or whatever that adjustment that we used to do on the sale of asset. So once we do these two topics, we'll be done with our Ind AS. It's a long one, but kindly bear with me. Yeah, let us now discuss tax holiday. What do we mean by tax holiday? If we can recall, we have certain sections under our under our Income Tax Act 1961, which talks about 10A or 10B, 10C, or we also have 80IA, 80IB, 80IC, 80IAC, all these things which basically talks about infrastructure companies, startups, power generation and power distribution. You get that? Hospitals and quite a lot of these specific companies. They basically have something called as tax holiday, like 10 consecutive years. Meaning whichever year they start, it's not like from the inception you need to go with tax holiday. I start my business today, for first 3 years I pay tax. After that I go for tax holiday. Holiday means what? Exactly, you're on a tax holiday, you need not pay tax. So for 10 consecutive years on the profits you will not pay tax. You get that? So we know that deferred tax will come into picture when we have accounts, when we have tax. Under accounts we have something called as carrying amount, under tax we have something called as tax base, and these two are not matching. And our provision is something else, under payment is something else. That used to lead to creation of our deferred tax. Now the point is, when accounts there is no provision because there is no tax liability. Under tax there is no tax payment. Deferred tax came into picture only when there is save now, pay later, or pay now, save later. Here tax holiday, boss. When you say holiday, there is no concept of paying. You need not pay. You get that? When you need not pay, there will be no difference. You get that? So should we be creating any kind of deferred tax? That is the question. Yeah. So it's like this. But the concept is straight away will say no deferred tax, sir. Why? There is no concept of payment, so there is no deferred tax. I will tell you whether deferred tax is to be created. Deferred tax creation or non-creation, you need to check with respect to differences. Sorry. You need to check with respect to temporary differences. If there are permanent differences, then gone case. No need to worry only. If there are temporary differences between our carrying amount and tax amount, then we need to see two lines here. Yeah. Arising and reversing in tax holiday. The difference will arise in tax holiday, the difference will get reversed in tax holiday. Like I bought an asset and that asset's entire useful life will get exhausted during my tax holiday of 10 years only. So even if I follow two different methods of depreciation under accounts and tax, it will lead to temporary difference, but that temporary difference will come and go within tax holiday. So in this case, there is no deferred tax. There is no deferred tax. Why? There is no difference only that is arising at the end. Whereas if difference is arising in tax holiday and reversing after tax holiday period, like the difference started in 8th year but it will get reversed in 11th year. 11th year is after tax holiday of 10 years. Then what will happen? That's a case where deferred tax should be created. Sir, is it asset or liability? That depends upon case to case basis. I've told you how to create deferred tax asset, when to create deferred tax asset, when to create deferred tax liability. So same thing will hold good. So this is with respect to our special cases of 10A, 10B, 10C, 80IA, IB, IC, and lot of other sections which are covered under our tax already. I hope you understood this point. So let me cover the last topic that's in our Ind AS 12, that is taxes, that is sale of asset. Sir, why should we discuss sale of asset? Very important, guys. Whenever there is sale of assets, under accounts, under tax, the treatment is very different. What do we do under accounts? What we do under accounts is we have cost. We have cost of that asset or carrying amount of that asset. From this, we compare this with our selling price, and we basically arrive at profit or loss. You get that? And depreciation is provided till date of sale. That's what we've been doing in accounts, isn't it? Under tax, it's very different. If it is a depreciable asset, when I'm talking about asset, I'm talking sale of depreciable asset. I'm not talking about an investment property. Sorry that I forgot to mention. Yeah, sale of a depreciable asset. Whenever a depreciable asset is sold, the sale consideration will be completely decreased from the block of the asset. You remember that? Yeah, decreases block. Decreases block of asset. So when it decreases the block of asset, if the block goes negative, that entire amount, that negative part will become a short-term capital gain, STCG. If the block is still positive, I'll continue depreciation. So after I do this, what do? I'll check block negative, block positive, block negative, block positive. If block is positive, then what? Continue depreciation. You get this? If the block is negative, complete amount will become my short-term capital gain. You will say, sir, this is permanent difference. No, boss, it is temporary difference. Over a period of time, it will get nullified. No. See, you might say that difference is permanent. Actually not. Now what is happening? If it is short-term capital gain, it is getting immediately recognized and you are paying tax on the same. If it is getting continuing depreciation, it is just that the income will get postponed to a specific date. The tax payment will get specifically postponed, and one fine day everything will become the same. Ultimately, my value of the asset is same. The total depreciation will be same. It is just matter of either are you recording immediately or you postponing the recognition. Under accounting standard 22, it used to become very, very complicated. But I'll tell you, Ind AS 12 has made this a beautiful concept. Why? Here the difference is with respect to profits. To our savior, no, Ind AS doesn't see with respect to income, it sees the balance sheet approach. So what do? Under accounts we have something called as carrying amount. Under tax we have something called as tax base. Whenever there is difference between a carrying amount and tax base, we create what? Deferred tax. We create deferred tax to this difference. When the carrying amount is more, we create deferred tax liability. When the carrying amount of the asset is less, we create deferred tax asset. We are talking about asset here specifically. I need not mention it because it's a depreciable asset. So it's simple. You do whatever your tax law says. You take the closing value of that specific block. Similarly, accounts, you do whatever your accounting standard or Ind AS says. Take the closing amount. Compare both. If the carrying amount is more, deferred tax liability. If the carrying amount is less, deferred tax asset. Simple, boss. So that's how we do it under Ind AS. So this is with regard to Ind AS 12. Ind AS 12 will make it very, very simple with respect to depreciable asset. There can be questions on this topic again. It used to be complicated under Ind AS 22, under accounting standard 22, but it becomes very, very simple under Ind AS 12. Yeah, so this is complete discussion. I hope you understood, and I seriously hope that you people are competent enough to solve any problem on Ind AS 12 with this knowledge. I have tried to cover the entire possibility of the questions that can come in our exam. What we have done is more than sufficient for you to go ahead and then solve problems on any Ind AS 12. You get that? So that is with regard to discussion on our Ind AS 12. Very lengthy standard, I can say. Lot of practical implication. So I went on little in detail to make you understand everything in detail with regard to Ind AS 12. So thanks for listening very patiently with regard to this. Wishing you all the best in solving the problems on Ind AS 12. See you all in the next standard. Till then, stay in the game.